Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Anthony Moreno. Hiking, camping, and outdoor recreation is very popular in our region. Outdoor recreation continues to thrive in southern New Mexico and West Texas. One group working to conserve the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument and grow outdoor recreation in New Mexico is Friends of Organ Mountain Desert Peaks. Patrick Nolan, Executive Director of the group, now joins us to share more about the organization's plans for this year. Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anthony. Always a pleasure to be here.
For our audience members who may not be familiar with your group, can you share a little bit about your mission?
Sure, absolutely. So our group, we're dedicated to our national monument, right? And I think we really try to make sure that we work to make sure our community feels connected to this place, because I think ultimately that's how we protect this, is making sure that folks have that love and appreciation and access. So we do that through guided hikes for the community that are educational, talk about the history, the biology, the geology. We take kids out for outdoor adventures of all sorts, and really build that connection to these places really early on is really important.
Your organization has been working for over a decade, really, to connect folks with outdoor recreation in our region. You've been working to grow the recreation opportunities that folks have this time of the year. What are some things that you have in store for folks?
Honestly, this is almost the best time of the year to get out, in my opinion. As a Michigan guy, right? Sometimes the summer's a little harder for me. But it's nice and cool out. I think what you'll find a lot of folks doing right now is mountain biking. Just over the New Year holiday, or the holidays, I was surprised. We had a ton of folks just come in organically to ride the Monumental Loop. And I was seeing the posts on Instagram, and there was no draw or no invitation for these folks. They're really just coming because this place is on the map and they want to experience it.
Now, you mentioned mountain biking. It's certainly been one thing that's been growing in our region for a while. And you mentioned folks wanting to ride the Monumental Loop. There's been more popularity with that ride in recent years. Can you share a little bit about how that's grown?
Absolutely. So we host every year, along with partners at the Monumental Loop, Danger Bird. And so this is 150 riders are coming, and this is a permanent event that we work with our local BLM office. And they come and they ride that route, right? And they experience the burritos down in Valdo, and they get up to Hatch and have a good Hatch chili cheeseburger. And they see really unique places that I think folks can see them, right? You got to drive and you got to hike, but biking just offers this really unique opportunity and medium to really get out to places that folks aren't always at. And that's why I think this loop is really special, because it gets folks to these places that aren't always on the radar necessarily.
Where do you see the future going with mountain biking in our region?
I certainly see some more robustness, some infrastructure. We recently, the resource management plan was recently approved in early January. And this is really the stepping stone, right? This is the first step to us. Okay, so how are we going to build that infrastructure? How are we going to get those trail markers out there? Where are we going to put people? How are we going to direct folks? How are we going to manage the impacts? And that RMP is really that starting point for us to really start having those conversations.
So that plan was released recently.
Yes.
What is your organization's thoughts on what the plan entails?
I think there's a lot of really great things in it, right? I think it provides some good outdoor recreation guidance. It provides some great protections for some of the cultural resources within the National Monument. It provides resources for restoration in how we're managing these places. So there's a lot of really good things in there. It's sort of, getting that designation was important, creating this place was important, but that RMP, that resource management plan, was really not the final step, because now we got to do transportation and travel. So that's our next goal, right? But this was a really important step, how are we managing this place and making sure that we are balancing the needs of the land and the right for folks to go out there and enjoy these places. And I think this RMP really, it got to that.
You mentioned transportation and travel. What are some thoughts on that, and how can that improve the experience of the monument?
I think one thing we're finding is, I always go back to infrastructure. And I'm not saying like infrastructure in bridges and paving. I'm talking about like outdoor recreation infrastructure, right? So trail markers, knowing where folks can go, trail improvements. Those are some of the things that travel and transportation will help us figure out. Roads, like what are the roads that are closed or open, and how are those accessible, and how are those managed? That's going to be a really important next step for the future of the monument and outdoor recreation for sure.
Having that infrastructure in place may aid your organization and the BLM or other agencies in connecting the community with the National Monument
Yes.
and our public lands here
Absolutely.
in our region. So can you share with us a little bit about how that plays a role in connecting the communities who reside here who may not be as familiar with the monument?
I think it's ease of access, right? So I think right now everyone knows the Organs. The Organs has that infrastructure, Dripping Springs, Pine Tree Trail, Baylor, Sierra Vista. It has those like marked places that people know about and know how to get to. There's parking, right? Just having a parking lot is really important. So this transportation and travel will allow us to look at, okay, where are some places that we can put that infrastructure? One, it gets folks out to those areas and seeing those equally amazing areas. The Organs are great. We all love the Organs. But there's other places to go see, right? And so getting that infrastructure in place, and it will help get folks out there, and it also help relieve pressure in the Organs. Like Dripping Springs has seen visitation triple since the monument designation, right? And with that tripling comes a tripling of impacts, tripling of people going to the bathroom, tripling of people out there doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing, right? And so this will really help us alleviate some of that pressure we feel at Organ Mountains.
You know, you bring up infrastructure, parking, and then there's something else I was thinking about was just having access to running water out
Yes.
there as well. Is something that people might not be thinking about.
Yes.
Can you share how that kind of plays a role?
I think that's for us that we go back to our education work on that, right? Is making sure that folks know the desert can be inhospitable at times, right? Making sure you're going out there prepared. When you go to, if you go to White Sands, they have these really sort of stark warnings about if you don't have water, you are taking some grave risks, right? Whether or not that's what we need to do here, I don't know, right? I think that's part of a community conversation to see, okay, what's the infrastructure? What are the things that we need to put out there so folks know when they're going out there, they're doing it responsibly, and they're doing it in a way that doesn't, one, put themselves in harm, and then put the search and rescue groups are always going out to the Organs, going all over, putting them at risk, right? So how do we minimize that moving forward as more and more people start to visit?
Okay, good to know. And now, with people visiting, how have you seen the difference with the amount of visitors that the monument has seen since the designation took place?
I think we see it mostly at Dripping Springs, right? But we've seen the parking lot is going to be revamped here soon. It's now ADA accessible. Bathrooms have been revamped. So there's been some really good infrastructure changes at Dripping Springs specifically. But I think now what we really want to see is, okay, how does Pine Tree begin to sort of be strengthened so that they can handle more visitors? I think that's really where we're going to see that go.
So other trails
Other
outside
trails.
of the traditional, more
Yes.
popular
Yes.
trails. Speaking of community hikes are something that your organization has been working to establish in the area and partnering with other groups as well. Can you share with us what you have in store for this year?
So part of our docent program, we just were in February. We have a good 5 or 6 docents that'll lead hikes to Soledad, Peña Blanca, Dripping Springs, La Cueva, lots of those areas. Picacho, we just added a guided hike at the in Picacho, and so really sort of using that as a tool to get folks out to these other places is something we want to look at, and we're in a couple months now we're going to be training our new group of docents, right? They get the certification, they learn how to interpret, they learn how to put lesson plans and guided hikes together, and my staff member told me the other day, I think we did like 45 docent hikes yesterday or last year.
Wow.
Not yesterday, but last year. And so while folks are out there, right, they're learning and they're growing their appreciation for these places. And that's how we work to protect these places, is getting more information and knowledge out.
There's certainly a lot of people that are passionate about outdoor recreation and hiking in our area. If somebody is interested in learning about that experience or training to be a docent, what would they have to do?
Just reach out. We have a page on our website, and there's a way to get in touch with us through our info@OregonMountainFriends.org. You can reach out to us, and we'll get back to you. Folks are always, this community loves this place, right? And so there's no shortage of folks that want to help and do things. Sometimes you got to commit to a couple weekends to get trained and do all those things, right? But once you do that, you're out there and you're in community and you're really doing great things.
Your organization also works with area schools to connect the students to the monuments and the outdoors in our region. What are some things that you have going on right now that you could share with us?
We're doing not every Saturday, but quarterly Saturdays we do Sábados on bikes. So we get, and this is catered towards the younger kids, middle, and then high school, right? We do separate things, and it's Bike 101. Really learning how to get on a bike, ride a bike, maintain a bike, fix a bike, all of those good things. So we're doing that. We do that at our high schools too as well. And we partner with Safe Routes to School, and they help. We're doing something at Sunrise Elementary, several schools throughout LCPS, our after-school clubs. And then something I'm really excited about happening is, so we have Danger Bird. Next, we're going to have Baby Bird, and these are high school students that are going to go out from Centennial High School, and they're going to do, it's not the full route. They're going to do maybe 20 miles, but they're going to do an overnight. They're going to camp. They're going to eat food outside, and they're going to spend their day out riding bikes on public lands, and we're really excited for that to happen.
So, I mean, not only partnering with other organizations, but also local schools to make this happen. And I've seen that with your organization. You've been able to work with area high schools as well.
Yes, and we think our after-school clubs is one of our favorite things to really do, right? Because I think it's at that high school level where these young kids are really sort of starting to think about, what do I want to do after college or in college? Like, what's my career going to be, right? And it might not be something in the outdoors, but maybe it will be, right? And so really inspiring that curiosity and that spark, I think, is something we're really proud of as an organization.
And we talked about students, but what about families in our area? Are there any events that you hold for families?
Yes, lots of families will come to our guided docent hikes. We got a lot over the holidays, a lot of folks coming in to visit, and you're like, oh, I got my in-laws in town, what am I going to do? Well, take them to a guided hike. And they have a great time. I attended the one on New Year's Day at the Sierra Vista, and we went sort of up into the mountains, which is a unique way to sort of see it. And lots of families that were visiting, folks from California, Utah. And I always love to go on those and meet those people and talk to them and see how they're experiencing this place and visiting, because that really helps inform what we're going to be doing moving forward too.
New Mexico's legislative session is going to be a 60-day legislative session this year. Can you share with us a little bit about your legislative goals in New Mexico at the state level and then also at the federal level?
Absolutely. So for this legislative session, I think we have two real big priorities. One is Outdoor Equity Fund. It wasn't funded to the funding asks versus how much they had to fund. There was almost a $2 million difference, right? So that $2 million difference means that kids are not getting those opportunities to get outside. So we want to establish a way to permanently fund that Outdoor Equity Fund at a sustainable level that makes sure that these young kids and these organizations have access to the funds to get folks outside. So Outdoor Equity Fund will be a big push. We're also hoping to look at, there's a Broad Canyon Ranch property. Up there, that's Slot Canyon, which is, I think, a place that lots of folks know.
And if you could describe it a little bit, it's a little bit north of Las Cruces.
Yes, north of Las Cruces, right, sort of north of Radium Springs, past the Blue Moon Bar. And it's this really narrow, kind of really unique Slot Canyon, right? Like you imagine these are all in Utah, but here it is, right? And it's a 15-minute walk, right, to get there, and then you're hiking through this canyon, and then you can go up onto a plateau, get these amazing views of the Mesilla Valley. So that area, it's owned and managed by New Mexico State Parks. And then it's also the area on the riverside where just we as a community don't have ready access in a lot of places to the river. So creating a state park there, I think will really, one, access to that river, restoration opportunities, habitat opportunities. So really excited to see if we can get that done this legislative session.
It'll be interesting to see what happens
Yes.
there. That you mentioned the Outdoor Equity Fund. How have you seen that make a difference in our area?
Oh, I think it's, there's any number of groups that have received that funding, including us and a number of other in southern New Mexico. And what it's really allowed us to do here specifically in southern New Mexico is create this, like a really strong, like a nucleus, like a good environment where all of these OEF, Outdoor Equity Fund grantees are working together and pooling resources. The outdoor club at Centennial High School was a recipient of the Outdoor Equity Fund a couple years back. And so their resource matched with our resources really adds to the experience for these kids. And again, it's access, right? It's how are we making sure that when folks are going out there, they're doing it with the right equipment, the right personnel, the right guidance. And Outdoor Equity Fund really makes that possible.
New Mexico has an outdoor recreation department
Yep.
that's kind of overseeing a lot of this stuff.
Yes,
So
yeah.
how have you seen that department really make a difference? And do you think the impact it's had is going to ensure that this department can be sustainable?
Yes, I think that office is, I think, really mission critical to outdoor recreation. One, I think they do it in a way that grounds New Mexicans and puts sort of local New Mexicans and our uniqueness at the forefront of this work. They do that through the Outdoor Equity Fund is one way they do that. And they also have what's called the Trails Plus program. And we've been able to use Trails Plus, so the improvements I talked about at the Dripping Springs area, those were paid for by Trails Plus program. So really helping to develop and build that infrastructure is really important. And then it's also it's a good way to to really put us on the map, right? We have this resource and these folks and these comms specialists that are talking about how special and unique New Mexico is. And having that office to sort of streamline and guide those efforts, I think is really critical.
Now, the outdoor recreation events and opportunities have certainly grown in recent years in New Mexico, but so has the industry as well, the
Yes.
outdoor industry. Can
Yes.
you give us an understanding of just how the industry has grown
Yeah.
in our state and across the country?
And I looked this number up before I came here, and it's always staggering. I'm always like, is that real? But it's $3 billion here in New Mexico alone. And in 2023, that number grew by 6%. Right, so we're seeing really good growth year over year. And it's something like 2.5% of our GDP or whatever it is for the state of New Mexico. So it's a big part, right? It's taxes, it's folks going into a restaurant, right? I talked about getting a Hatch Green Chili Cheeseburger, right? That's outdoor recreation, right? So it's this really cool nucleus that I think it brings in all the great things that we love about our state and puts it into this really fun, great way to be here and visit.
So people may go for a hike and then afterwards they visit an area restaurant,
Yeah.
or perhaps are staying at our
Yes.
local hotels or in experiencing the communities.
Yeah, and Visit Las Cruces had really great data on this. One of the most popular things that people do after a hike is a beer and a cheeseburger, which makes a ton of sense. That's almost exactly what I would do after a hike, right? So there's data and there's way to track all these things and really unique ways to market these to folks that maybe aren't aware of southern New Mexico using this data. And again, so going back to that Office of Outdoor Recreation, having those experts at hand, and they're really open and honest and transparent and really great partners to work with.
I just have a little over 2 minutes left with you, but I want to ask you a little bit about how the changing climate may impact the monument and perhaps goals you have with your organization. Can you share with us any concerns you may have in addressing these climate concerns?
I think with anything we do, we have to think about climate and we have to think about impact. And one thing that we always really try to do, we go back to that education piece, right? Making sure that folks know how is climate change impacting our national monument. And you can see it, right? We know in southern New Mexico, I think here in the Chihuahuan Desert, we are feeling and seeing these impacts of climate change already. And so really, I think for us, it's really relying on education and making sure that we are pushing our elected officials. I read in a book recently, somebody said that if somebody's denying climate change now, they will probably continue to deny it until they turn blue, right? So it's really making sure that we're getting that word out there and talking about these impacts in real ways that folks can see and feel here in southern New Mexico.
Now, our outdoor recreation opportunities seem to be just growing more popular in our area. What do you feel are like the major things that contribute to that?
I think, well, the monument designation. You don't have outdoor recreation until you have that protection, right? The two, I think, go hand in hand. So it puts protection. One protects it, and one creates infrastructure, and it creates resources to then make sure that those activities are managed and the impact of those places is manageable. But that it starts with protection. You have to protect these places to grow this outdoor recreation industry.
Okay, just over a minute left with you, but if somebody approaches you and asks you for suggestion on a hike, they're visiting town, they're only in town for a day, what hike are you going to suggest to them?
I always go Pine Tree because I think it shatters people's expectations of what southern New Mexico looks like and what southern New Mexico is.
That's about a 4-mile loop.
Yes, so that's a little bit harder. Otherwise, I tell them Soledad is my other favorite one to go to.
Another popular one
Yes.
in town. Patrick Nolan is Executive Director of Friends of Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks. Thank you so much for joining us, Patrick.
Thank you.
Moving on, a local bookstore in Las Cruces continues to thrive. Our producer Courtney Hill takes us to downtown Las Cruces to learn more about COAS Books in this living here.
Back in about 83 or 84, my dad, who was head of the contract archaeology program at New Mexico State, he was going to conferences, and he had a publishing company, and he's selling books at conferences and stuff, and he was collecting books for his own library, and it got so crazy that it was filling up the house, and he said, I think maybe I'll go into the book business, and so we started here in town in probably late 83 or 84, and he thought he'd do it kind of as a sideline and do consulting for archaeology and stuff, and the bookstore part just blew up, so it's been growing ever since. We're happy to be downtown. We're proud to be part of Las Cruces. Book selling there's not a lot of them in the country, but there are still people that read books, and we have kids books section, which we're standing in here now, which was recently expanded because kids books are one of our biggest selling sections, which is fantastic because that means that we've got a whole new generation of readers coming up. So books are still an important part of people's lives. One of my greatest joys is having people come in and they bring their friends and they say, look at this place, isn't this great? And my wife and I, who she spends a lot of time trying to beautify this place, that people love it, and I love it that they love it. It's not brand new and fancy, but it is what it is, and it's a wonderful place to be. My staff is great. We're happy to be, all of us are happy to be here. It's a great job. So my typical customer is just somebody in the community or somebody that's visiting, and they come from another part of the country where bookstores are more of a thing, and they're excited to come in and try this one out, and they tell their friends, and it's just kind of a slow organic growth is what we've had because it's great. I'm grateful that the community supports something like this. I think there's still a lot of people that don't know about us, and I think there's still potential for growth, which is great. I'd like to get more books out into people's hands. We have a lot of books in here. We have a lot of new books every day. We get stuff in every day. So In fact, we have people that come and they'll check their section. I tell the staff this too. You got to keep putting stuff up because people come and check their section every day, and and they want to see something new. And keep it nice, because if it's looks like a hurricane hit, they think, oh, they're late to the party. Somebody already got all the good stuff. But that's not true, because we get stuff every day, every hour of every day. We have just about any section you can think of. We've always carried new books on the Southwest and some anthropology and archaeology. We've kind of gotten more into the new book area too. We have a lot of bestsellers and things you can get, but we're an independent, so we're different than the big boxes of the world. We curate things that we think our community would like to read. This community has a lot of hidden treasures. People come in and they bring in stuff. I don't need to read this anymore. It's sitting in your closet. Nobody's benefiting, so they are on their bookcase. So they bring them in, and somebody else that's just starting or has been looking for something for a long time can find it again. So we're really proud of the fact that we get product back out into the community. Things that if somebody else has enjoyed and they no longer need it, maybe it's new to somebody else. So that's a good part of what we do.
That's all for this week's program. Remember, you can always stay updated anytime at krwg.org. Also, you can email us your thoughts and story ideas to feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG Public Media, I'm Anthony Moreno. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.